Welcome to the Connector Podcast, an ongoing conversation connecting fintechs, banks and regulators worldwide. Join CEO and founder Koen van der Hooydonk as you learn more about the latest available trends and solutions in the markets.
Welcome to another podcast of the Connector, and today I've got a very special guest with me. It's Humble Tech, all the way from London, and it's Richard and James. Can you please introduce yourself and also the company?
Hi, very nice to meet you. Thank you so much for having us on your podcast, Koen. I'll start with myself. My name is James Dawson. I'm the founder of Humble Technology. I set Humble Technology up in 2021 after a bunch of CEOs in my network were continually asking me to help them and teach them how to sell, how to scale their sales organizations and all that. I'd done that because, up to 2012, I was working in a very big financial firm called ICAP. And one of the projects I led, we built a credit default swap trading platform, and we went from 0 to 400 million revenue in three and a half years.
Wow, impressive.
And because I did that, I thought I was a total rock star. And I left and I joined a very early stage startup with zero revenue, product not built yet. And I spent 5 years there. And that was an absolute baptism of fire, learning how to do enterprise sales with no big brand behind you, selling software to banks.
Well, I told you it's going to be a special occasion today because that's really the space we're in as well. So that's why I'm so keen to learn a lot about you guys as well.
So the real truth is, like, for the first few years, I just completely messed it up, ran around having tons and tons of meetings and working 16-hour days and managed to get some stuff done. But if you fast forward to 2020, when I wanted to set up my own business, when I'd been a very successful, CEO of a fintech, CRO of a fintech, scaling from 0 to 10 million, that first million being excruciating, and then the 1 to 5 getting a gain, and then the 5 to 10 is kind of easier, and then the 10 above that, I think, that's where you don't need me anymore, because then it just becomes a machine. So when I wanted to kind of create something where I could teach other people how to do it, I went and looked at big tech success stories, and I did a ton of research, and I spent a whole year reading about, like, how did MongoDB go from 30 million ARR to 800 million ARR in like 4 years? I mean, that's phenomenal, right? If you look at big tech success stories like MongoDB, Sprinkler, Snowflake, Add Dynamics, App Dynamics, all those kinds of companies, there's a methodology that they use. If you see the interviews for the CEO of MongoDB, Dev Itcheria, he makes it very clear that there's two things that are absolutely essential if you want to scale. One is you have to have a good product, world-class. And the second thing is you have to have a world-class go-to-market and sales strategy. And that's kind of through all that research how I discovered MEDDPICC and all these methodologies that these people use. And that's what we use today. And it's just absolutely game-changing.
Yeah, I love to go into that MEDDPICC approach. But maybe, Richard, can you also introduce yourself a little bit?
Firstly, thanks, guys, for having James and myself on the pod today. Really excited to collaborate with you guys. Just about myself, 20 years in financial services, 10 of those years at sort of a big consulting company, learning the trade, not just from a sales point of view, but also getting in there, making certain things stick on the client side. After that, I jumped out into the big blue ocean, thinking that it was a good idea to, get some different stripes. I set up my own consulting company, Scale Up Consulting, where I, provided services into the fintech ecosystem and also into sort of big banks around various things in transformation. Off the back of all of that work that I was doing, especially in the last sort of furlong of Scale Up Consulting, I realized one of the big things that the big pain points that existed in the fintech ecosystem was was the fact that sales was a misnomer. Everyone was thinking about product, and focusing on how a product could get to market. But the little engine that actually matters the most was sometimes not really nurtured. And as I exited Scale Up Consulting, I, fortuitously was introduced to James. Between us over the last sort of couple of years in a way back and forth, and then more so over the last sort of year or so, realized that actually there was a marriage made in heaven, and decided to jump in and just work and partner up with James and really drive out sort of the humble technology story. And obviously James mentions the MEDDPICC stuff, which is a cornerstone to all of what we do.
I thought that was the baby of the marriage.
That is
No,
that is
someone else's baby.
It was a beautiful birth. Beautiful birth. Right.
Can you tell us a little bit more, because you obviously got me very, very curious about the methodology. What does it entail?
So let me take you. I'll take you to the history a little bit, because that's quite interesting. So if you go back to the 1990s, there's a company called PTC. It's the first private software company to hit $1 billion in sales, right? Okay, and the guy who was running that sales engine was a guy called John McMahon, and him and his co-founders were relentless, American execution artists wanting to build revenue and scale, and like very, very professional about it. And they wanted to understand answers to three very important questions. Why do deals, why do we win deals? Why do we lose deals? And why do deals slip? Why do they fail? They wanted to answer those questions. So they created MEDDPICC as a methodology, which is an acronym. There's a whole bunch of acronyms that we're going to go through and explain exactly what it is, so that they could have a common language in the sales team and they could always be on the same page, and that they could very accurately qualify deals in and out of their pipeline and know exactly what to do in all of their deals at all the time, and know which stones need to be turned over and which not. So it's a very scientific kind of framework for running your sales pipeline. So that's kind of effectively where MEDDPICC came from. The acronyms we can go down in a little bit, but it's basically the M stands for metrics, the E stands for economic buyer. Then you've got two Ds, one for decision process, one for decision criteria. The I stands for implicating the pain, the problem that you're solving. The first C is the champion who runs the deal. The second C is the competitor. And then if you want to, you can put the P in the middle, MEDDPICC, and then you get the paper process, which is very, very important when you're selling to banks, is to understand the detail of that. So in a nutshell, that's MEDDPICC. But, I could run a 5-day workshop on teaching someone how to use it.
No, sure. And maybe that should also be for those that really like to go into depth. That could be the next step after this podcast, that they contact you guys and just get a more deeper understanding. But what I'm interested in is it is a methodology, but why does this framework particularly works well for fintech companies?
Yeah, so it's basically it's an excellent framework for enterprise deals. Anything that's big, long, complex sales cycle that has multiple people you're selling to, this is a very excellent framework. There's tons of other frameworks out there, like Bant and Slips and Scotchman and Miller, Sandler, Miller Heim and all that kind of stuff. There's tons of other frameworks, but this framework is used by all the big successful tech companies like Sprinkler, MongoDB, AppDynamics, Snowflake. I mean, you name almost every very successful software company is using MEDDPICC today. So that's why it's like super useful kind of to integrate into your sales process.
Also, just to sort of add to that, I think a lot of the challenges come in sales in is, I guess, one of the things is a common language is making certain management are on side all the time, right? Or at least there's a vent or pipe that shows people what's going on. And this is, what MEDDPICC provides. It allows not just the sales team, but also marketing and customer success, the revenue operations team, to really fully understand where we are, what we're doing, and how we progressing or how we aren't progressing, right? Which allows the revenue team to accelerate deals. But also, because you're asking specific questions at specific points in the sales process, like early on in the sales process, you're able to shorten sales cycles. So as an example, we aren't going to go out and just randomly give a demo. We first want to validate our champion is our champion. And then we also, before we even start going down that path of demos, we want to have a conversation with the economic buyer and see exactly what their pain points are and whether that pain is solvable within inside our solution. And then we go down the next step. So we're always qualifying, always asking questions. And this ultimately leads us to sort of that improved consistency and enhanced sales execution, and then that communication that allows us to start pushing forward on the most important deals, right?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So would that mean that your sales pipes are also aligned with all the steps in the MEDDPICC, or not really?
It's kind of it's slightly different. So if I try and explain the difference to you, your sales process is like a map. If you were going to drive from London to Amsterdam, there's a bunch of towns you have to go through. That's your sales process, right? And it's like a map. Now, your qualification methodology, like MEDDPICC, is more like a compass or a GPS. If you get lost or you miss one of the towns, you end up in a wrong town, your MEDDPICC or your GPS will allow you to get back into the sales process very correctly, right? It creates a way of cleaning your pipeline so that there's not a lot of messy stuff in there. It qualifies stuff very carefully so that you always know what you're doing. And if you think about most pipelines, if they're not using MEDDPICC or something very experienced like this, the deals in the beginning of the pipeline are quite easy to understand because that's all the new leads, the new opportunities we're trying to get. The ones at the end where you've already sent the invoices and you've already sent the, you've done all the work, right? And you've got through procurement and you're talking to them. Those are easy to understand. You can predict that those are like 95% going to close. It's all the stuff in the middle where salespeople are saying, oh, that's 50% likely, that's 60, that's 70. That stuff is all just in the fintech space at the moment for people who are not using MEDDPICC. That's more of a wish list rather than reality. MEDDPICC allows you to qualify those deals so that they become much, much more likely to close, much more accurate, so that you don't have a huge mess of stuff in your pipeline that keeps slipping from one quarter to the next, never closes, wastes everyone's time and all that kind of stuff.
So it's actually a tool to focus and to calibrate, if you want, your sales teams. Now, you speak a lot about enterprise sales, and I get that when you actually compare an enterprise as a bank, it is definitely an enterprise. But a lot of the fintechs nowadays, they also go B2C and somehow also B2B2C, so to the smaller organizations within the industry. Does it make sense on the C, and does it make sense on the middle part? Think about payment institutions that are very young and so on and so forth.
So for B2C, MEDDPICC doesn't make sense at all. Like you wouldn't use it. It's a marketing play. You have to get very good at marketing and very good at product to sell B2C.
I agree.
You only use MEDDPICC for B2B, for enterprise deals that are complex, that take 6 to 12 months to close, that require me to sell to like the business person who likes it, then the technical person who needs to validate it, then the procurement team, then the COO, then the CFO who needs to sign off on it. If it's a big messy deal like that, you need MEDDPICC. If it's a very quick deal where someone signs and pays on a credit card, you don't need it at all. It's a marketing play.
No, that makes sense. That was I was thinking as well. Now, we as the connector, we're focusing a lot in 2025 on all the things that, well, I'll read for myself. What we see is a lot of the companies that we help, they're world famous in the place where they're coming from, but they're rather unknown to the place they want to scale to. So a lot of the work that we do as the connector, we help them to get brand exposure, to help them with the first steps of sales? Because we realized that if the brand is unknown, if people don't know the product, there is not even a conversation. It just blocks off. So how does MEDDPICC participate with this type of thinking?
So MEDDPICC wouldn't help you with that at all. I mean, if you're unknown, you're unknown. Like in our consultancy, we can only really help scale-ups.
Mm-hmm.
So someone who's got stuff in their pipeline already, they've got like some revenue, they've got some product market fit, then you can start applying this. But if in early stage product awareness and stuff, that's like something that's more like marketing and relationships and stuff like that. You can't use MEDDPICC to build that.
So it's literally in a moment where things are falling into pieces, where when using your earlier words, James, you said it's very hard to get from 0 to 1.
Yeah.
And then from 1 to 5, that's also tough. I guess then MEDDPICC starts to kick in between the second part of sales. Is that correct? Or
also, like, if you think about it, it's also, just to make it a bit simpler for the listeners out there. You are a founder. You maybe are scaling up, and now you're thinking you might have done a Series A, 10 million, 20 million, whatever that is, and you're thinking, okay, I need to hire in a sales team. I need to do a lot of different things. But the first thing is you obviously need to make certain you have that right infrastructure set up internally in order to make certain that the team you hire in actually can perform, right?
Mm-hmm,
and this is when we start, and this is sort of when James and myself sort of when we start getting involved, right? Moving away from founder-led sales to enterprise-led sales. And building out that leadership philosophy, the culture, also obviously that let's call it in inverted commas that infrastructure or that methodology, that framework that allows this team to pick up the reins and start moving forward, right? And MEDDPICC is the wraparound that James obviously and the navigation system that James is alluding to. Obviously, things like sales processes, etc., need to be part of that as well.
Yeah. So maybe if I explain it in a slightly different way as well, it'll be also resonate with other people. When you want to scale your sales organization, a lot of people will go and they'll raise money and then they'll go and hire a bunch of salespeople because those people know the companies they're selling to or they understand the market, all that kind of stuff. That's what they'll do, right? But the first step anyone should do, even if you haven't raised money, is you need to write a sales playbook that says like,
I would say multiple playbooks even.
Yeah, this is how we sell. This is who we sell to. This is what we're selling. This is the value of our product, the business value, not the features and benefits and all that stuff, the business value. So you write the sales playbook, and you can use MEDDPICC to write that as well. And then once you've written the sales playbook, then you can use that sales playbook to go and hire your team. You use the sales playbook to onboard your team, to train them, to teach them how to sell, all that kind of stuff, right? And most people don't do that. They go and hire random salespeople and then just hope it's going to work out. There's no way to train them, to enable them, to teach them about the product, to teach them how to sell. And that's why there's so much failure, especially in the fintech space.
Yeah, so you're talking about common language almost, right? And sort of framework.
It's also like it's also really important to understand that getting this type of framework in, or this type of philosophy, this type of culture into an organization isn't a training day away, an away training day, or a couple of sessions of training and hey ho, everyone is brainwashed and now we're off to the races and this is going to happen, right? Because let's be honest, this it's not like that, right? It requires, in order to implement something like this, it requires really strong leadership across the organization, across the revenue organization, and across the whole organization. There's complexities involved in implementing it and making certain sort of the sales process links to the qualification framework. And also, as we all know, in sales, sometimes it's difficult to implement these type of things or embed these type of things because what's happening next quarter or next week. Is the immediate results sort of culture is sort of is around. So you need to be able to sort of manage that and lead that as you start integrating it into your routines. And it works. So the thing is, you just need to step back sometimes and say, the game we're playing is this, and this is what we're doing in order to win at that game. We implement a MEDDPICC or something else, then live that and be obsessed with it and sort of drive that forward.
No, I agree. Guys, time is passing by quickly, especially when you talk about your passion. So I just want to get one more word from you guys before we close this podcast, and that should be a one-word advice to any founders in the scale-up space. And then afterwards, also tell us how to find you guys, where to contact you, because I'm sure we touched upon a lot of souls now that all want to know more about how to get successful in sales. So what would be your word, Richard?
So the one word for me would be have a blueprint. If you don't have a blueprint, find a blueprint and don't rest until you have that blueprint. Then imitate it, and then later on, innovate.
Cool. What about you, James?
So for me, it's about, this is specifically targeted at founders or CEOs. You have to own sales. Like be 1,000% responsible for it. You can't outsource it until you've written your sales playbook and you're scaling and you've hit 5 or 10 million revenue. You have to own it 100%, and you have to make sure that everything is working perfectly before you hand it over to someone else.
That's a nice one. And how do people contact you guys?
You can find me, James Dawson, on LinkedIn or just humbletechnology.co.uk, but LinkedIn is usually the best.
All right. And what about you, Richard? Same thing? LinkedIn?
LinkedIn, or drop me an email, richard@humbletechnology.co.uk. If you want to drop James is just james@humbletechnology.co.uk.
Oh, that's easy.
We're super happy to talk to anyone and collaborate with anyone. So please reach out.
Cool. Thank you both for joining this podcast. Thank you also for the audience to stay tuned, and let's follow more. And we're going to get more of these insights in 2025. Thank you very much.
Brilliant. Thank you, Kun.
Thanks, Kun.
Thanks for listening to another episode of the Connector Podcast. To connect and keep up to date with all the latest, head over to www.jointheconnector.com or hit subscribe via your podcast streaming platform.